Welcome to the SEO.co Search Engine Optimization Podcast. Digital marketing essentials and next-level tactics. From off-site and on-site optimization to persuasive selling and everything in between. You'll learn actionable tips on what it takes to outright and outrank your competition.
Welcome back to another episode of the SEO.co podcast. Today we're continuing the series on mobile SEO, and we're going to jump into how to optimize a site for mobile. Optimizing for mobile isn't complicated, but it isn't as simple as flipping a switch. There's no single patch of code or button you can push to magically alter your site to be compatible with mobile devices. However, you do have several options. Responsive websites are optimized for mobile at a design level. They're created in such a way that allows the components of the page, such as banners, blocks of text, headlines, and so on, to organize themselves on the page based on the size of the screen that's accessing the web page. These components may flex or stack to accommodate a smaller screen size, so a desktop user and a mobile user would both be able to easily navigate the site, even though the layout might be different. There are a number of advantages to responsive websites. Since the design is flexible enough to adjust to any screen, every type of mobile device will have a customized experience. However, the responsive element only needs to be built once. There's only one URL for your website, which makes it easy to develop and easier to manage over time, and it's relatively simple to implement. The loading times for responsive sites tend to be slightly slower than the other options, but that's generally a small price to pay for a universally adaptable website. Mobile URLs are exactly what they sound like. They're separate, customized URLs that exist for the mobile version of a web page. For example, if your traditional website was www.example.com, your new website would be www.mobile.example.com. Whenever a user accesses your site using a mobile device, you can automatically repoint them to the mobile version of your site and provide a link to toggle between these versions just in case a user wants to switch. Mobile URLs are starting to become antiquated, but they're still useful for some businesses. They take more time to create than a responsive design since they require an independent creation and require more extensive ongoing upkeep. They're also vulnerable to fault points in the redirect system. If you accidentally direct a mobile user to the desktop version, they may have a poor experience. The third option for mobile optimization is closer in theory to responsive design. Like with the responsive design, dynamic content structures require a single URL to house both a mobile version and a desktop version. The difference is, in a dynamic content setting, you'll have twin versions of your site, the desktop and the mobile versions, ready to display based on the type of device and screen size trying to access them. This is an improvement over mobile URLs, since you'll only need to manage one URL, and you won't have to worry about creating and sustaining a redirect. However, there are some flaws that may prevent you from achieving the best results. Creating one mobile version can be problematic, since there are hundreds of different mobile devices that could theoretically access your site. Now, before you start trying to optimize specifically for mobile experience, you have to ensure that Google approves of your mobile site. That means having your website perfectly capable of loading when accessed by mobile devices. There are three types of mobile layouts that are considered the standard for modern websites: responsive designs, dynamic content, and mobile URLs. All three are viewed equally by Google, but some webmasters may have a preference for one over the other. A responsive design is one that automatically detects the type of device being used to access it and adjusts the layout of the site accordingly. For example, if your site is being accessed from a desktop machine, it may display traditionally, but if it's being accessed from a smaller vertical smartphone screen, it might stack some of the horizontal features to maximize the user experience. Responsive designs use one URL and one design, which makes it very convenient and efficient for developers. It's relatively easy to incorporate, and it consolidates an otherwise multifaceted development effort. The only potential drawback of a responsive web design is loading time. Since mobile users will technically be loading the entire site, it may take longer to download than a specific mobile landing page. Still, responsive design is the most popular mobile option today. Next up, dynamic content, which is similar to a responsive design since only one URL is used no matter what type of device is accessing the content. However, under dynamic content, you'll actually be serving up totally different versions of your website. For example, you'll have a desktop version of your site loaded up and a mobile version of your site loaded up, and you'll serve the version that corresponds with the device trying to access it. This allows you to serve each device more specifically. However, it takes much more work to develop, implement, and manage since you'll need to create a version for almost every type of device that could access your page. Next, mobile URLs are an old-fashioned way of getting your site optimized for mobile, but they still work fine for some businesses. Rather than trying to adapt on the fly the way responsive designs do, with mobile URLs, you'll essentially be building a separate mobile version of your site on a different URL. When a user accesses your site from a mobile device, you'll automatically redirect them to the proper URL, usually a variant of your primary URL. Mobile URLs are typically more difficult to manage. You'll have to ensure that your desktop and mobile versions redirect appropriately, which can be difficult. Otherwise, your users will view an inappropriate version of your website, and they may be left with a terrible first impression. Now let's talk about optimizing for mobile-specific searches. Users searching on mobile devices like smartphones are searching using the same index as desktop or home searchers. That means as long as your site is present on that index, both desktop and mobile users will be able to see you. However, there are a handful of specific ranking signals on mobile devices that will interfere with your rank. First, desktop and mobile presence. Google tends to favor sites with both a desktop and a mobile presence. If you only have a mobile site, you aren't going to rank as high, even if the majority of your searches are on mobile. Make sure your links are suitable for both desktop and mobile loading. Second, page loading times. Page loading times have always mattered. The faster your site's page loads, the higher your site is going to rank. But on mobile, the preference for fast-loading web pages is even more extreme. Google recommends loading above-the-fold content in under 1 second. Optimize your loading speed for mobile as much as possible. Next up, URL redirects. Redirects are an important part of many sites and an unavoidable one in many circumstances. However, adding a redirect essentially adds more time to load the destination page, which means a lagging user experience and a lower rank as a result. Avoid redirects as much as you can. Next up, annoying pop-ups. It's tempting to include an overlay page or a pop-up ad on your mobile site, especially if you're trying to get users to download your mobile app. But Google has a firm belief that such advertising efforts are damaging to overall user experience, and as a result, you could rank lower if you feature one. You'll have to make the call as to whether the increased conversion rate from the pop-up ad or the increased traffic from the higher rank is more important. And lastly, full content. Your web pages can't just be partially optimized for mobile. If there are any areas of your page that aren't optimized for mobile, such as flash animations or a video that won't play, your ranking for mobile searches could drop as a result. Be sure to check every nook and cranny of your pages for potential non-optimized content. And that's all we've got for this episode. Join us next time as we continue this series on mobile SEO when we jump into how to adjust your current SEO strategy. Thanks again for listening to the SEO.co podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on the SEO.co podcast. We appreciate your time. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit SEO.co for more resources based on today's topic, as well as access to more podcast episodes to help you improve your site's long-term SEO success.